Alrighty. Alright, welcome back to another stream. Um, Last time I left off, I went ahead and set up this sign up route in my Dos Santos apartment homes project. Now, today, my main focuses are going to be to set up the login, log out, and more of the validating, um, more of the validators for the sign in, sign up routes. So yeah, that was a pretty bad explanation. A little bit sidetracked to start things off, but yes, we want to go ahead and create the post routes and delete routes for sign in and sign out using bcrypt. And using the compare feature so that we can actually compare the password and the hash passwords, and afterwards to validate kind of the transactions or the API route calls that we need to do after logging in. We're going to make sure to use JWT to make sure that we're using our JSON web token to properly validate the user and make sure that the person logged in is who they say that they are. So first thing I want to do is I first named this to me, but after thinking about it a little bit more, I'm actually going to just rename this folder to auth. Update imports for auth, yes. Also, let's see, just to double check and make sure, let's go into our server index, not the middleware, and set this to auth, save this, auth index.js, express router, okay. I'm gonna update the salt routes to 10, it seems like that's a normal amount. Um, and now to kind of go over what we have so far, we have this auth sign up route where inside of the object that's coming in from a rec.body, we're going to have a first name, last name, email, and password. And uh, once we have that information, we're just defining it right here. Const found equals, we're going to go ahead and do a query inside of our database to see if we can find a user with this email when they're trying to sign up. So if we do find that email, then we're going to say this user already exists and send a 400. Otherwise, uh, if it's not found, then we're going to go ahead and hash the password that was passed in and create a user with this hash password, and then send back this user object that was created and that's in our database. And the status 201 means something was created. So this is generally what we're doing for a post route. And next, we're going to use another router.post to do a sign in, because from there we're actually going to need to generate a JSON web token um, to serve as our validator. So I'm gonna continue to try to work through it. Before I started this live stream, what I actually went ahead and reviewed is going to be Web Dev Simplified's playlist. Primarily these three. This is all a part of this web app security authentication playlist. This what is JWT and why should we use JWT? This JWT authentication tutorial and the build Node.js user authentication, password login. These three playlists. So these playlists are really consistent with what I learned in my boot camp at Full Stack. So I'm going to continue to work through it, try to reference this as little as possible. But hey, if I do need to reference it, there's no shame in um, just getting some more review if you don't understand it properly. It's the only way to learn better. So yeah, maybe we can watch that video together. I'm gonna go ahead and play some music in the background. You shouldn't be able to hear it. If I have to watch a video, then I'll go ahead and mute that and share my desktop audio so that we can listen in together. Um, yeah, so let's go ahead and get some music started for myself. Should put that on my speaker, my headphones. All right, cool. Alrighty. And we're gonna have our /auth sign in. Let's just say login. So router.post sign login async rec res next try catch error console.log error and let's see. So outside this login request, what we need to do is we first want to find out what information they're giving to us. So I'm going to say the two pieces of information we're going to get in is going to be the email and password equals rec.body. So this is information we're getting in. I can tell I did a really similar syntax up here. This honestly just makes it really clear to me what information has come from a request.body. I can reference this first line and say, okay, what information am I getting in from the body of my request? So this is how I generally like to structure my routes. Um, so yeah, from here we have this email and password. So now what we want to do is we want to try to check our database to find this user. So let's go ahead and first do this. Const found equals await user find one where the email matches up. And now now if it's found, then we want to continue. And else if it's not found, then we actually want to pass in a res.status 401. Let's see. HTML status codes. Okay, so I'm gonna pull this out into a separate one. Move this over here. Excuse me. So 401 is unauthorized. So we don't want an unauthorized at this time because it's not that they're not authenticated. It's just that we can't find this email. So yeah, let's keep it as a 400. Or 404 not found. Here, can I find the requested resource? It means the URL is not recognized. That is not what we want. We want a 400 bad request. So we're gonna send a 400 status, and we're gonna send. I'm sorry, we cannot seem. Let's just say unable to find this user. Please try again. So now if we can't find this email at all, then we're gonna say, okay, it doesn't seem like this user exists. Um, click sign up to create an account. Okay. So now let's just prompt them to sign up if we can't find their email. The other case, if we do find their email, what are we going to do? Now we want to do a bcrypt compare because now we want to check like, are we able to recreate this hash password? So let's see. And bcrypt is imported here, so bcrypt dot compare, and then it's going to be comparing the password to the hash pass. Let's see, hash pass. How do we get this hash password actually? The password is going to be hmm. Okay, so it's actually gonna be the user. If the user exists, then you want to search user.password. I want to compare the password to the user password. And now we want to make an if statement to say, okay, if because this bcrypt.compare, this is going to give a true or false value. So if it's true, that means they put in the right password. Then we want to go ahead and do JWT things here. And else, if it doesn't logged in, then we want to give a res.status and then a 401 dot send incorrect password. Please try again. All right, so we'll go ahead and save that. So it's really easy. If the password's wrong, then go ahead and just send them a 401 status. Else, we want to go ahead and start doing some JWT in here. We want to be able to create this like token. We want to give them an access token as well as a refresh token. So this is a good time to kind of try to re-go over. I know in the last stream at the beginning, I tried to go over a little bit on how bcrypt and JWT works. I feel like after doing some more research, watching some more videos, I have a better understanding now of how all of these pieces are interacting together. So this is just from some DSA thing. So let's go ahead and clear this. Um, I want to try to go ahead and re-explain the process of how everything is working. So here we have our database. Honestly, we have our database, sure, but okay, database. We have our database. Databases are large; they're big things, and inside of our database we have this table, which is the users table. Users. And now, uh, obviously there's going to be a couple of different pieces of information here, but here is going to be email and then password. And so these are going to be the two main pieces, and anything here is just going to be some extra information that we're just storing. In terms of this email and password, though, keeping the email is fine. This can just be like johndoe@gmail.com, a little bit smaller. But for the password, we don't want to just store this password. We want this John Doe password to not be saved like this, because that means anyone who has access to our database automatically has access to all the passwords of every single user that we have. So instead of doing that, we want it to have some type of some encrypted password. So in order to do this, we need bcrypt to translate it into this type of a format. So when we have bcrypt, what is happening is we're saying, okay, when you're creating this user, you're going to give us these pieces of information: first name, last name, email, and password. It's very essential of what you need to log in. So what we're first going to do is say, okay, is this a new email? Because if it is, then we can actually create this account. If not, then you already exist. You don't need to sign up. So if this is a new user we're creating, we're using bcrypt.hash bcrypt.hash with a password, which would be John Doe password. And then we're using 10 salt rounds. And this 10 salt rounds is just how many layers of encryption is going on. So it's being encrypted 10 different times using 10 different quote unquote encrypting formulas, I should say. So it's really nearly impossible to recreate it, especially after 10 rounds of continually using a new algorithm to remix these things. But it's done in a very specific order where it can be undone, but bcrypt is going to handle that for us. If we run bcrypt.hash with this exact same thing 2 times in a row, we're going to get two completely different results. But bcrypt is able to keep track of it because a password format is going to say this first part of this is going to have another random string and then a dot. This first portion here is going to be the explanation to how are we supposed to encrypt it to get this password. So by doing this, it's completely randomized, and you can't just make one of these up and to line up with this to somehow get the right password. It just doesn't work. You can try to think of it like how it might work. It just will not. This is a very secure way to do it, where bcrypt is handling just this randomization variable, and also just like a system to have this compare feature to really compare the two. Now, when we do bcrypt, so now that we created this password over here, this is going to be for sign up. We're going to use this hash to hash this password, so we have this really long password in here. Let's just go ahead and make this a little bit bigger, have it look like this. Perfect, there we go. Okay, so now in the sign up, now that we've hashed this password into this cool looking thing, next thing what we need to do is log in. So now when we log in, we need bcrypt again, because now we need to do first we need to first step one is find the user. Two, if user exists, then what are we doing here? So we're saying, okay, find the user. If the user exists, compare the password to each other to see if it's true. Compare password to encrypted password. So now what this is pretty much going to do is inside of our, let's see. So we're going to be saying bcrypt.compare the typed in password, which is John Doe password, and it's also going to compare whatever this is 123k5 WSE password. And what this is essentially going to do is it's going to say, okay, now do a bcrypt dot hash of John Doe password with the encryption of 123k5J2J09.0. So this is essentially what it's doing. Instead of saying, okay, just randomly salt it 10 times, it's saying, okay, we have actually we have the specific formula we'd like for you to follow and encrypt John Doe password with this first portion that you have. And then this should equal this 2OJ3ITROWEI string. So now the last part of this is to compare this along with the second part after the decimal of here. And if those two things are equal, then we know that the login is going to be working properly. So cool. That's a lot of stuff that we just talked about, but this is how the encryption portion of the password is working with JWT and with bcrypt. Apologies. So bcrypt is doing a lot of the heavy lifting for us for the encoding portion so that we can securely log in to the server. So cool. If we reach this part and we say, okay, go ahead and compare the password to the user password, if everything works out well, this means, okay, this is definitely the user that we're looking for. Now, the next thing that we want is we just want a way for this user to stay logged in while they're inside of our application. And in order to really secure that connection, we can't just give them some type of key that's just stored on their device, because if that key gets stolen, they can pretend another person who steals that key can gain all the access permissions to the website that without even needing like a username or an email. So if your computer gets hacked and they're just able to log in without knowing any of your information, that's likely how it's going to happen. So in order to prevent that from happening, we want to use this JSON web token, which is going to be a validator which is going to be a validator to make sure that after a certain amount of time, we are actually going to keep refreshing this token to make sure that the right user is logged in. So, all right, cool. So first steps first. So once we know that they're the user, let's see. Let's go ahead and first const jwt equals require jwt. And I can't even remember off the top of my head exactly what all the JWT commands or what any of them are. So if I say jwt.enter, jwt in the period, I should have a couple of options of what I can look up. Apparently not. Okay, so that didn't work out very well. Let's go ahead and check documentation. What are the basic commands in here? JWT documentation. Like that was the one that I did not like. Okay. Is it JWT JSON Web Token? Okay, so it is this. So that explains why this is not happy with me. For JSON Web Token. Now if I say WT, okay, perfect. Here we are. So now, first thing that we'd want to do is I believe we want to go ahead and sign to actually create our access token. And then after we sign it, then we also need to, if we wanted to complete any actions later, then we'd be using jwt.verify, where we're actually passing in the token that we're generating here. So first of all, let's go ahead and sign. So if we take a look here, the first argument is going to be the actual payload of what we want to assign. This is going to hold all of the user's data. And the next portion is going to be our secret or private key. So yeah, let's go ahead and jwt.sign. Let's see. This is going to be the user object right here. So if everything's right, so here we're assuming this person has logged in. They have access to like say I am the user. So we're gonna go ahead and sign it and store all of the user's data inside of here. But if I wanted to just not pass in any unnecessary data, let's actually go ahead and just give the email is going to be user.email and password is user.password. So there are other pieces of user that we have, which is going to be first and last name. It's not a lot of information, but as this grows larger, all we really need to do to properly sign this is going to be to just store this email and password. I don't know why we need any more than that. So let's not send any unnecessary data for the purpose of this JWT. So yeah, let's just go ahead and sign it with this. And we want to store this information, and so in order to store it and just properly secure it, we're going to need some type of secret key to create our signature. I feel really repetitive saying that, but this is really just about JSON Web Token. The purpose of it is really just to make sure that we have a way to validate the user. Yeah. So in order to do that securely, we just need to make it so that it's not easily replicable, where you're going to need some type of password in this end file, this JWT secret key, in order to oh, I can't talk. Maybe my music's a little bit too loud, but yes, we want to secure the secret key right here in order to properly make sure um, that it's being signed with the system, and that it's just proper following the proper channel. If you have someone's email, you can't just magically pretend like you're the user, because once you enter in the password, we'll go ahead and generate that token for you, which should only be valid for a specific amount of time, because if it were valid forever, then whoever has that token will forever be able to access your information. So with all that said, it's time that we make a secret key for ourselves here. And the way to do this is we can actually just go into our terminal and type in node. And once we type in node, we can see that we can actually have access to just use node. We're going to go ahead and require, let's see, I want to require some kind of library. I'm gonna have to check exactly what library that is. Um, let's see. One moment. Okay. It's gonna be require crypto dot random byte. I can 64 bytes and dot to string and then hex. With this random byte is random bytes. All right, cool. Well, that's really long. Let's go ahead and copy this over. And then we could set it equal to this. So with that being said, I don't want to actually share the secret key. So this is how it's done, and then we'll want to access that and place it in here. So for now, I'm going to go ahead and actually redo this with a new string here, because I can go ahead and just rerun this. You can tell it's completely different every single time I do this. So I'm just literally going to redo this off screen and put that into my M file in place of this one. So I'm going to go ahead and move my screen over to a place where it can't be seen, regenerate a new token, copy and paste that in. And also, I'm also going to create a second one. Previously, you saw JWT secret key. I'm also going to say JWT underscore refresh key, refresh secret key equals, and then generate a new one. Paste that into here as well. I'm going to close out of my terminal, open up a fresh new one. All right. Alrighty. So now you can see here my end file. I have the secret key, I have the JWT secret key and JWT refresh secret key. And I just tabbed this over so you can't see it, but now I'm just going to go ahead and save this and close out of my end file. Cool. So now at the top of my file, I'm going to go ahead and say require what is it called, .env .config. And doing this is just going to give us access to this .env file. And once we save that, we are now good to access this. And so we can go down to here. Now when we sign it, we can see here the second argument that we're passing into jwt.sign is a jwt.secret. And after that, it's just some additional optional parameters, which we will get into later. For now, I'm not going to worry about it. So right here, I'm actually going to say process.env dot jwt underscore secret underscore key. And this is going to be that secret key that that isn't shared. So hopefully I do this right, and even if you see a portion, you're not going to see the entire thing. I'm just going to make sure this is JWT secret key. Perfect. And then the other one is just JWT refresh secret key. Cool. I'm gonna recopy and paste this just to triple check and make sure it's right. And I just went ahead and showed most of it. I didn't show the entire thing. And uh yeah, I'll go ahead and actually just regenerate a new secret key later. I know I didn't show all of it, so there's no way of knowing what those last characters are, but in any case, I will replace that later. So now I got JWT sign, email, user, process M. So now it's being signed with this secret key, and it's going to store this information with this special secret key that you or anyone using the application is not really going to know about. So it can't be replicated where you can just start signing things now. If someone has access to the secret key, it's very bad, and that's something I want to make very, very clear. This M file is supposed to have files that are not meant to be shown to the public. Okay, cool. So now that we've signed it, we can go ahead and send the generated token out to store on the front end, I believe. Um, let's see. I'm gonna do a little bit more review. Yeah. Const access token equals JWT.sign. Rest.json. Don't need to do that. I can just say rest.send and that access token. So now the return of this is going to be this access token that doesn't really too matter if it's shared because hopefully it's not a permanent access token that can be used forever. Um, so we'll go ahead and save this. Yep. So after it's authenticated, now we're generating this access token. After we send over this access token, we can later have some type of authenticate user um, thing that can give us a true or false value to make sure that it's that we're able to proceed. And let's see. I think that should be it for our login for now. The next step is to have this refresh token later. So we're not going to be using it yet, but I'm going to go ahead and still put in here const refresh token equals jwt.sign email user.email password user.password process.env.jwt refresh secret key. Okay. All right. Next thing that we want to do. So I probably shouldn't be drinking coffee at 5 p.m., but it is what it is. All right. So cool. Now, if you're logged in, you're logged in, and now you have this access token which you can store on the front end, and you can just hold on to that. There's a lot of benefits, but I'm not here to go over all of that right now. Important thing is we have a way of retrieving this access token. So now let's go ahead and try to run the server and oh well, I just showed this as well. Gonna exit out of that, and now I definitely need to um, just reset everything later. I don't know what I just did with my basher. It started acting really strange. Okay, so let's go ahead and get this started. No npm run start server. Oh, it seems like it's breaking. Yes, let's go ahead and let's see. Someday I will remember this. Likely not anytime soon, but OESL, start Postgres. Okay. Sudo service PostgreSQL start. Put in my password. Cool. Now that Postgres is started up in my Windows sub Linux, we can run the server and npm run build watch. Cool. So now we should be all good to go. Localhost 8000. We have our website running. Cool. Now we have these different commands here, this auth signup and auth login. Now we want to use Postman for this next part. We want to actually try running these routes and pass in like this information. So first of all, let's go ahead and open up a new terminal and actually see what our database currently looks like. Let's see. JSON. You can tell sometimes I'm just randomly clicking around hoping to find an answer. Don't be like me. But if you do, no worries. It definitely happens. Let's see. So I want to log in to Postgres, put my password, change over to Dos Santos, select all from users. Okay, so we got a lot of we got a lot of emails and everything to work with, and we can tell at first we have a lot of non-encrypted passwords and then some encrypted passwords, and we can see that format of there's this period format, and then there's the rest of the password, which is the real password. This one, I'm not seeing it. I don't know if that's just because it's too long that it doesn't fit on the screen. Um, I'm going to assume it's just because it's too long. Yeah. So let's find out. I'm going to assume the password to this is also Joey's password too. Um, but first of all, let's just check one thing at a time. Sign up. So inside of our body, what do we have? Let's go ahead and just put my information in Chinyang, him, my password, chinyk226@gmail.com. Joey's password too, and is longer than others. Well, we won't use that. We'll go ahead and use a password of this is my password. And let's go ahead and sign up. So it looks like we're getting an error first. And it's returning some type of HTML. So that is not what we want. And we should fix this route to say auth auth sign up because we changed this up here to be auth instead of me at the beginning of this stream. So let's go ahead and run this again. Perfect. So now I have ID 20 and I have my hash password over here. There's no decimal, so maybe it's not always a period that separates out the two. Maybe it's just forward slash. I'm not too sure, but um, yeah. Either way, we have this hash password, and this code is going to know where to read it from, even if I don't. It's smarter than I am, and that's definitely a fact. So we don't have a phone number in here, but it's not a required field, so it's all good to go. So now that I'm signed up and I have this is my password, now let's go ahead and actually try to log in. So now if we go ahead and try to log in, we just need the email and password. And from that email or password, we're going to try to validate it. And if we are able to validate the user and if we're able to use validate the user, compare the password all checks out, then we're going to go ahead and be able to produce this access token right here. Let's go ahead and send, and what we're expecting here is to get a string of the access token. Perfect. So now we have this access token, which JWT divides into three parts. This is this header, This is going to be the actual contents or the body. This is going to be this actual object in here, encrypted, um, encrypted, and this last portion is going to be this is selling the JWT, how exactly these two were created. So really similar to bcrypt. In bcrypt, it was the first section that was defining how the rest of is going to be encoded, and in JWTs is going to be this last portion right here. Um, excuse me. So now that we have all of this information, this right here is going to be the actual access token that we have. And now, what are we going to do with this access token? Now we need some type of like authentication. So I'm actually going to go ahead and put that in this middleware section over here. Um, I believe I can just define this as a function. Now, let's see, one moment. So in order to authenticate this token, I'm going to, for now, I need some way to actually check it. So router, hmm, yeah, one moment. Okay. Let's go ahead and just review this portion with web dev simplified. Let's go ahead and kind of watch this process and how this works. I'm gonna pause my music, share my desktop audio, and then we can listen in together for what's happening
Should work,
here.
and there you go. You can see we have an access token being returned to us that has no expiration date, that has the user information saved in it, so we can access any of our endpoints with this user information here. So now, in order to test that, let's actually create some middleware, which we're going to put on our post here, which is going to authenticate our token. So we can take a function here. We're going to call it authenticate token. And of course, since it's a middleware, it's going to take request, response, and next. And then inside of this function, all we need to do is we want to get the token that they send us, we want to verify that this is the correct user, and then we want to return that user up into the function here for getPost. So we can call that authenticate token function as our middleware, so we know we have that in our post. And now inside of this function, we need to get the token. And this token is going to come from the header. And we're going to have a header called bearer. So it's going to say bearer, and then it's going to have our token afterwards. So this string over here, our token, is going to come after the keyword bearer. And that's going to be in our authorization header. So in order to get this header, we can just say const auth header is going to be equal to request, and we want to get the headers. And then from that headers, we actually want to get the authorization header, which is going to have the format of bearer followed by our token. So then all we want to do is get our token portion. So what we need to do is say that our token is going to be equal to auth header, just like that. And we want to get this split. So we're going to split it here on a space, because as you know, there's a space between bearer and token. And we want to get the second parameter in that array. So we just say 1 over here. And this is going to be this token portion of our bearer token. And in order to make sure that we actually have a header, we first need to do auth header and essentially what this is saying is if we have an auth header, then return the auth header token portion, which we split on the space. Otherwise, just return undefined. So our token is either going to be undefined or it's going to be the actual token. So we can do a check to make sure to see if our token is null. So if our token is null, we just want to return to the user an error code saying that they don't have access. So we can say send status, and we want to send a 401 status code so that we know that they have not sent a token to us. Now, if we get to the portion after this token check, we know that we have a valid token, so we need to verify that token. We can do that with JWT verify, and we want to pass it the token as well as the secret that we actually hashed that token with. So we can just say process.env.access token secret, and this is going to take a callback, which has an error, and it's going to have the value we serialized, which in our case is this user object. So it's going to have our user as well as an error. And the first thing we want to do, of course, is check if we have an error. And if we do, we want to return another status code to the user saying they don't have access. So we're going to send a status, and this is going to be a 403, which essentially says that we see that you have a token, but this token is no longer valid, so you do not have access. Now, if we get past this, we know that we have a valid token, so we can set our user on our request. We can say request.user is going to be equal to this user object, so we know we have a user, and we can just call next just like that, so that we can actually move on from our middleware. Now, if we save that, make sure that this is next instead of next. I accidentally misspelled that. Up here, we now have access to our user. We can say request.user to get our user. So let's actually filter the list.
Okay, perfect. All right, so I feel like we have the information that we need. Nice, thank you, WebDev Simplified. You definitely simplify a lot for us, so very thankful for that. Let's see, mute desktop audio. Turn back my music on. This will probably make it even quieter. So I love YouTube music. The only downside is it doesn't get quiet enough. It stays very loud, surprisingly. So I would say putting at minimum volume, I can put a web YouTube music plus dialing this down to like a sixth of. Excuse me. A fifth of everything else on my mixer on my audio mixer is like the volume that I'd want for some background music, which is pretty crazy to me. But in any case, cool. So I have my answer. I do want this as some type of middleware function. I'm not gonna have a good way to check this right now, but I would say that's okay. I'll be able to plug it in somewhere. So let's say in my middleware, let's say const authenticate. Let's see. Authenticate token. Authenticate token equals no. Authenticate user equals, and then it's going to be a function, and middleware functions rec res next, and for these middleware functions, the very last thing that you do is you say next, which means after you complete this step, you're going to move on to the next function. Um, so yeah, next thing that we need to so the first thing we need to do, now that we've kind of defined this as a middleware function by having these three parameters, rec res next, and passing the next at the very end, what we want to go ahead and do is going to be like what is it, const auth header equals rec.headers authorization. And now this part may look pretty confusing where we have these headers that has authorization. We are going to be using um, Axios to make these calls and make these API calls. And when we do that, we do actually have to send in the headers. But luckily, there's a way for us to there's different parameters we can put into Axios to define what's inside of our header for this authorization header. This is a general standard, so we do have to type it in, but this is how it should be done. So in any case, yes, rec.headers is going to look for authorization, and inside of authorization, we are going to get something called bearer and then token, and we just want this token portion right here as was mentioned. So next step is going to be const token equals auth header. Make sure that this authorization header even exists, and if it does exist, then we want to only get the last portion, which is auth header dot split separated by a space, and then we want to get the last element from this array. And if the token is some type of null, again, this is a loose comparator, so we're saying null, but it can also be undefined or anything like this. Token can be undefined as long as it's a falsy value. Then we're on the same page pretty much. Because if it's a falsy value, we're not actually getting any type of string or anything back. But if it is some type of string, if there's something inside of here, if it's not falsy and it's truthy, then we want to go ahead and do the jwt.verify. Just go with the next step of the process. But first of all, before I get into that, if it is null, what do we do? If it is null, then we're just going to go ahead and return a res.status. Let's see, status 401. And 401 in this case is going to be, and I would think I would actually remember this, but just a couple months, just even just a month of not looking at it, it's hard to really recall. This really needs to be more of a daily thing, especially as a newer developer for me. So when I'm not certain, I need to consistently just check back at documentation until it becomes normal. If it's not, I don't want to be doing guesswork and teach myself just bad habits and just remember the wrong things. I want to be very confident in my answer, and if I'm not very confident, then I want to check back on the documentation and start getting that confidence by continually looking at it. 401 is unauthorized. So what this means is that this user, because let's see, if we reach this authenticate user status, that means they're trying to, if we're using this authenticate user middleware, then that means they're trying to access some specific type of information. And if the token just does not exist at all, they're just not authorized to excuse me. Semantically, this response means unauthenticated, um, which is true. They have not been authenticated yet. We don't even have the chance to. So that's why this 401, this is a really good spot for this 401. And then I like to just go ahead and actually just send a separate message. Unable, uh, no, unable to authenticate user. Cool. And remember, if we reach this if statement, we're gonna have this return right here. The rest of the code is not going to run, so I don't need to put some type of else statement in here. I could, but I do not need to. So okay, next up we need to verify. So really similar to bcrypt, what we need to verify is we need to verify first the token that we have right here, the token, and we need to compare that to our process.env.access. Let's see, what do we have it defined as? Do tell GWT secret key. And from this, the next argument that we need to add in is actually a function. The first parameter is going to be an error, and then the user. And if we get an error, then we're going to return res.send status 403, or in my case, status 403.send. User does not have um, um, incorrect user, um, unable to access this page. And this is the 403 forbidden. This client does not seem to have access rights to the content. That is, it is unauthorized, so the server is refusing to give the requested resource. Unlike 401 unauthorized, the client's identity is known to the server. Yes, so that means we know that you do have some type of you have some type of token. You are signed in, but not in the one that we need. Excuse me, let me go ahead and back up a little bit. Um, so we have the auth header. If so here token is equal to auth header, and if so, auth header is split. So now we have your token, and now we're comparing your token to the secret key itself. And if for any reason that does not work out, and the token with the secret key, if that pairing just does not work, then maybe it's not necessarily an incorrect user. It could also just be that your token has expired. So let's go ahead and actually fix this message. I'm not going to send a message at all. I'm going to actually stick with the send status. Otherwise, if everything does go through, now we have our request. Um, we can actually go ahead and add to our request. Now we can just say request.user equals user. So um, we had this rec.body thing on the other pages, but instead of rec.body, now we have rec.user, which is now equal to something else. That can all be sent. That all can be wired through our API routes with this middleware function. So in our middleware, we're able to add into our request what's stored inside of our request, which is really really nice. And after all that's done, we can just go next. Let's go ahead and do that inside of our. Um, let's see, where is this? Is that verify? I don't think it's said verify. Maybe we do. Uh, I don't think it necessarily matters. After everything's completed, we want to go next. I'm gonna leave it outside here, and we'll see if there are any problems with that for any reason. And now, actually, what I want to go ahead and do is I want to reset my database because, as you saw, we have that old database information with the passwords, and I don't like that being there. So let's go into let's see, into our server.js file. And let's go ahead and pass an object force true. And let's rerun this and then close out. No longer force true. Save this. And then rerun the server. Now, I want to again select all from users, and now we can see that it's blank. Cool, now we have a clean slate. Now I want to sign up. And also, I want to delete this. Oof. API, HTTP, localhost 8000, auth, sign up. Inside this, I want to send in some raw JSON data and email jnyk226@gmail.com. Password. This is my password. Next, I'm going to want, let's see, email, password, first name, Jin Young, last name, Kim. Okay, perfect. So let's go ahead and sign up. And we did not get what we want. Let's check to make sure. Auth, sign up, auth, sign up. That's in first name, last name, email, password. First name, last name, email, password. Auth, sign up. Ah, this is a post request. Let's go and send this request one more time. Perfect. And now we have our hash password here. Looks like it's separated by a forward slash rather than a period. Um, okay, so now that we have this, now we want to log in and generate a token. And for this, all we need is an email and password. But now if we go ahead and, before I go ahead and do that, let me actually go ahead and sign up. And let me save this. Okay. Now they have that. Let's go ahead and make a new post request for HTTP login inside our body. Have a JSON object, email, nyk226@gmail.com, and then password. This is my password. Now I'm going to go ahead and send this request. And now you're able to compare everything. It says, okay, that looks good. Let's go ahead and give you this JSON web token. So this is this is pretty much your login credential for now. And for now, this token is not going to expire. So this is a very, very valid token. So we'll go ahead and hang on to this. So now that we have that, we're passing it to our front end, and now every single time we make a request inside of that header, we're hoping that we're going to have some proper authentication. So here, just this API route. This is the API route, and it has cleared the middleware. So now here, what I want to say is const authenticate user equals require middleware. Okay. Let's do this, save this, middleware, module.exports equals an object with authenticate user, save this. Okay, cool. So now I'm going to be exporting authenticate user inside of an object, and inside here, I'm calling that object and use it as a middleware, so authenticate user. All right. So now I can save this, serving, everything's good to go. And if I check my database just one more time, I can see I have one user. Now let's go ahead and try to actually just access this API. Again, let me actually just go ahead and save this real quickly. Authenticate login. Okay. Login. Off login. Sign up. Save that. Create a new one. This is a get route. Localhost 8000 API / And now what I'm first going to do is I'm going to try to send this request. Let's see what happens. Unable to authenticate user. Dang. Okay, let's go ahead and actually update these headers. So what does our header have? If we check into our authenticate user function, we can see that what we're looking for is authorization header. So I can type in authorization here. You can see it's already default. Maybe it needs to be capitalized actually. We'll see if it's case sensitive or not. So inside of here, you need to grab this token that we got and place it into here. This is a token that we need to pass back into our thing. Pass in, does not work. Let's go ahead and lowercase it, authorization, unable to authenticate user. Darn. So what is happening? We were able to log in with this information. Yes. And we can grab this, pass it into our authorization. But we're still not able to clear it. So authenticate user, what is happening here? Let's see. Headers authorization. So it's saying that the token is null. Let's say console.log token. Let's go ahead and try running this API command, and I'm hoping to have undefined. So rec.headers bearer token. So let's go ahead and try to actually just do it through here. Delete this. Send this request again. Res.status is not a function. Hmm. Request response status 401. Hmm. Token is not null, then return send status. Hmm. So I got a 500 error? If I reach this line, then I got a 500. Interesting. I try setting this API request one more time. Res.send is not a function. Res.send is not a function. Maybe it's request. Maybe errors at the beginning. Running this again. JWT is not defined. Ah, very important. Okay, so this is good to know. These 500 error handlers, the first for Express to know that this is a 500 error handler, you need four parameters inside of this app.use. Yeah, the function that's passed in needs four parameters, and one of them it means there's also an additional um, error parameter inside of here, but it looks like it needs to be at the very beginning, and then goes error rec res next. I didn't know that the position would matter, but after thinking about it and seeing it here, it makes a lot of sense. But in any case, now that we have now that the error handler is working properly and we can see the error that's coming out, that's really easy. We can see the issue is that JW2 is not defined. So obviously, if this were in production, we wouldn't want this. We don't want to see JW2 is not defined. But in any case, it shouldn't be in production if it had this kind of error anyways. But const JWT equals require JSON web token. Save this. Okay, so now if we run this one more time, this is the API route and it has cleared the middleware. Cool. So now we can see that it's passing through completely fine. And I also want to try seeing if I get rid of this and pass it back into here, authorization, and I pass in the value. Will this work as well? It will not. If I lowercase a this, will it work? Unable to authenticate user. So, okay, let me try this one more time. Let's go ahead and log in, generate this token, copy this, paste it into our header. That does not work, but if I pass it into here, I can go ahead and send it like this, and it has cleared. Okay, so I gotta make sure to use this authorization tab right here. Before I was able to get it to work, but um, yeah, maybe it was because there were two. Let's see if I clear this out. Huh, strange. Oh, let me see. Okay, I need to say bearer. If I don't have that bearer in there, it's not going to work. So if I want to say authorization, I'm going to say bearer and then the key. And then if I send this, then the API route, and this is API route, and it's cleared the middleware. Cool, perfect. All right. Now, cool. Now we have a way to authenticate any of our API routes if you need to be logged in to complete any of these actions. The API route and it's cleared the middleware. Yay. So that's really good. Now we have this system of uh, yeah, now we're able to actually use this authenticate user um, middleware to say, okay, let's make this like a restricted access point. We have a really good way of restricting it to the to make sure they're actually logged in. Um, let's see. Now, one thing that we have to remember is this just confirms that they have a valid token to prove that they are themselves. Later, we're likely gonna need to create a middleware to actually authenticate the user, not the token. So let's go ahead and fix the naming here. Authenticate token, authenticate token. Save this. Inside of our index.js here, authenticates token, authenticates token. Cool. So now that we know that this is a valid token, um, yeah, we're good to go. So now the next portion that I want to step back and go back to is this refresh token. Um, yeah, so we have this um, excuse me, here. So we have sign up, we have login, and we have this line that I added in previously on line 34, and then we're creating this refresh token. This refresh token is something that we should be keeping. Um, and um, let's see. And so this refresh token is something that's going to stick around. That's going to be linked to this user, and the access token itself should not last too terribly long. So an extra parameter we can add in is just to say how long is this going to last for. And for now, we'll go ahead and put in like 30 minutes, and that should be valid. Hopefully, it doesn't yell at me. So I'm going to go ahead and try to log in. Send this. Okay. So I need to pass in an object. And inside the object, we're going to need to pass in some certain parameters. So let's see, jwt.sign. Let's see, payload, options callback, algorithm expires in. Okay, expires in, and then let's see, 30 minutes. I'm gonna save this. Try to run this again. Cool. So it looks like it's working. So this is valid for 30 minutes. Let's go ahead and just make sure this is working. And just say 10 seconds. Save this. I'm gonna relog in. Now I have 10 seconds to use this. And so I'm probably too late now. I'm hoping that this does not work. Forbidden. Okay. Now if I'm faster, instead of using this, I use this. Let's go ahead and try one more time. I'm gonna log in. I get my token. Gonna copy this, paste it into here, and cool. I cleared it. Looks like I got some type of error in here though. Cannot set headers after they're sent to the client. So let's see. Where is this happening? Hmm. Okay, so this happened when I made this API call. So inside here, try this again. Send this. Save the token. Okay, so now I'm not getting the error anymore. I'm not exactly sure why that happened, but now that more than 10 seconds passed, this shall now be forbidden. Okay, so when I get a forbidden, then um, then it's gonna give some type of error here. Okay, so I think we're good to go. We know this refresh token is working, but now we need a way to actually refresh this token. And in order to understand exactly how these two things are working, I'm actually going to go ahead and leave it back to Web Dev Simplified to kind of go over that again. The more times I can watch it and better understand it, the better I can explain it in the future. So let's go ahead and turn up the audio again. I'm going to make it a little bit louder this time, and let's see what he has to say.
Just like that. To put the same user inside of both tokens, so we can easily create a new token from our refresh token, which uses the same user. We also want to go to the environment variables, and we want to get our refresh token secret so that we can serialize this. And we don't want to put an expiration date on our refresh token. We're going to manually handle the expiration of these refresh tokens, and we don't want JWT to do that for us. Now the last thing to do is to return this refresh token to our user, just like that. And now if we go over to our request and we make a post on localhost, this is going to be 4000 to log in. If we send that request, you can see we now get an access token and a refresh token back. And let's make sure we change this back to 3000 for post. And if we try to make a request, this is most likely going to fail since I don't think I got it quick enough. Okay, I did. So it hasn't expired yet, but if we keep sending a request, you can see after 15 seconds, we're now forbidden from accessing this route, and we need to use our refresh token to create a new one. So now let's go over to our auth server, and we need to create a new function. This is going to be app.post, and we want to post token. So essentially this is going to be for creating a new token. It's going to be a request and a response, And inside of here, we're going to take in a refresh token. So we can get a refresh token. This is going to be equal to request.body.token. And this request is going to look just like this. Let's actually just create a really sample request. We're going to post to http://localhost 4000. We want to post to token. And we're going to, of course, make sure our content type is going to be set to JSON. And inside of our JSON, we're going to pass a token. And that token is going to be our refresh token. Right now we don't have one, but if we were to make a request here, for example, here's a refresh token we can use, and we could paste that in there, and this would pass up that refresh token to our auth server here. And we need to use that refresh token and check to see if we already have a refresh token that exists for that. So normally you'd want to store your refresh tokens in some form of database or some form of Redis cache, but for our use case, we're just going to store them locally in a variable. We're just going to call this refresh tokens, and we're going to set this to an empty array. I'm going to initialize this with let, just like that. And now this is not a good idea to do in production because every time your server restarts, this is going to be emptied out, but it's a lot easier to show you and demonstrate with than creating an entire database just to store these tokens. And the first thing we need to do is every time we create a token, just like down here, we just want to set our refresh tokens.push, and we want to push in that new refresh token we just created. So now we have a record of that refresh token, and all we can do inside of this token is check if that token actually exists. So first we want to say if refresh token is equal to null, we want to return our status down here. So we can say res.send, send status. Let me just close out of this section over here. This is going to be a 401 status. Now the next thing we can do, if I spell things correctly, is we can check if our current refresh tokens includes that refresh token that we got sent to us. So what this is saying is, do we have a valid refresh token that exists for this refresh? Essentially, does this refresh token still valid? Have we removed it, or is it still good? And if it does not exist, what we want to do is again return saying that they do not have access. So we're going to send a status, this time saying 403. Now if they get all the way past all those checks, we can actually verify this refresh token. So we can just say refresh token. We want to get that secret variable, so process.env.refresh token secret. And of course, we're going to have an error as well as our user object being returned inside of this callback function. And of course, we want to check our error first. And if we have an error, we can just return that error. So we can say return, and we want to send down a status of 403, very similar to our normal authentication. But now what we can do is actually create our access token. We can say const access token is going to be equal to generate access token. And you would think we can just pass this user object, but this user object actually contains additional information such as the issued at date of our token. So we actually need to get just the name. So we can say we want to get the name and the user.name. That way we're passing down just this raw user object and not all that other additional information. Now we can return that information by just sending res.json of our access token, just like that. And now we're finally ready to test this. So if we go over here and we log in Gym, you can see we get both a refresh token and an access token. If we copy our refresh token, paste it into our token function, and we copy our access token and paste it up here, we can send some request and you can see it's working, but eventually we're going to get the forbidden status. We no longer have access, so let's create a brand new access token. We can copy that access token, paste it up here, and now we have access again for another 15 seconds, and eventually we're going to lose access. And you even notice that these are on different servers. This is port 3000 and these are on port 4000. So our authentication, where we log in and create refresh tokens and handle refreshing our tokens, all happens on a different server than our actual API, which is great. Now the next thing I want to talk about is how to actually de-authenticate refresh tokens. Because right now, forever and ever and ever, users just click the send request button, create infinite access tokens for users, no matter what, and as long as they have that refresh token, they can do that. So in order to prevent this, we need to have some form of delete function. We're just going to call this a delete here, and we want to do, for example, log out. And what this is going to allow us to do is actually delete those refresh tokens. And this is really easy. Normally you'd have to delete them from some database, but since we just are storing them in a variable here called refresh tokens, we can just say we want to.
All right, cool. I feel like we got the information that we need. All right. So we need this auth token thing, and this is going to be what refreshes the token that we have. So you can see right here at this rect body, what we're getting from this rect.body is a token. So this token is going to be the refresh token. So I'm gonna actually just make this a little bit more explicit. Refresh token. I'm actually gonna say refresh. I'm gonna say it's gonna create a post. It's gonna be a post route for refresh, auth refresh. Then when we refresh it, we're passing in the refresh token. And what we do with that refresh token is we're going to say const, let's go back to here, const access token, const access token equals, let's see,
Set our refresh tool.
I'm actually going
And
to
as
go
long
back
as
a
we
little
click
bit
this,
further.
create read 3000, copy that, paste it, and now we're sending res.json of our access token.
So he creates a function called generate access token. Um, One good thing I like about that is it makes it a lot more explicit. Um, but instead of doing that,
We found the null info would
let's
be
see.
very similar to our normal authentic token is going to be equal to generate access token. And you would think we can just pass this user object, but this user object actually contains additional information such as the issued at date of our token. So we actually need to get just the name. So we can say we want to get the name and the user.name. That way we're passing down just this raw user object and not all that other additional information. Now we can
Let's see. Send this refresh token. Let's see. Oh, okay. So we need to actually, before we do this, um, let's see. So first, if the refresh token is null or falsy, then return res.send status for a 1. And if there are no um, so now this is going to be like um, attempts to find a refresh token in database. If not found, send status 403. So I'm not going to go ahead and do that right now. Um, but after that, if we do find it in our database, the next thing we want to do is say jwt.verify refresh token. We want to compare that to process.env.refresh jwt refresh secret key. And so with the verify, the third parameter is going to be a function which is going to take in an error as well as a user. And if we get an error, then we can go ahead and return res.send status 403. And then else const access token equals generate access token. And inside here, we're going to have email, user.email, and password is going to be user.password. And then we can say response.send access token.
We can return that information by just sending res.json of our access token, just like that. And now we're finally ready to test this. So if we go over here and we log in Jim.
Okay, perfect. Now I'll go ahead and save this. As I said, now is a good time to start testing. First of all, I'm going to do this. Um, Save this, create a new one, place it over here. There's going to be another post request because we're generating a new access token. localhost auth, and then refresh. And inside of our body, we're going to be passing in, ooh, that's in JSON. It's going to be refresh token. That is going to be equal to what we have here, a refresh token. Paste that into here. Cool. Now when we send, we should be able to, uh, the generate access token is not defined. Oh yes, apologies. So to generate this access token, um, I didn't define this function, so I'm going to have to just say jwt.sign again, and then this is going to be the first parameter, and second is going to process dot env dot jwt. Um, Actually, this should be the. Let's go ahead and listen to our good friend
That
WebDev
information by
Simplified.
just sending and not the state of our token. So we actually need to get just the name. So we can say we want to get the name and the user.name. That way we're passing down just this raw user object and not all that other additional information. Now we can return that information by just sending
So if I understand this JWT sign thing correctly, in order to create an access token, I'm going to need to put in my process.env.jwt secret key, not the refresh key. And this is going to go ahead and expires in, and then let's do 15 seconds. Just like WebDev Simplified does it. Seems like a better time frame than 10. 10 seconds is a little bit too quick. So I'm going to go ahead and resave this. And let's go ahead and run this again. And now we get a new key. So now we should be able to go ahead and use this new token. And this is going to pass for a while. And after 15 seconds, now I kind of wish I did 10 seconds again. Now it's forbidden. And we can go ahead and refresh again, get a new key. And then we're good to go for another 15 seconds. Cool. So now everything's working properly. How are we going to use this refresh token in order to, um, go ahead and refresh it every single time it expires? Um, hmm, what's the best way to do this? This refresh token. Hmm, what is the best way to automatically refresh? Instead of making it a post request, I feel like I hmm what is the best way to use this refresh token? For now, we have the system set up. I'm actually going to go ahead and update these to 30 minutes. From what I know, is a more reasonable time frame for how often we should be refreshing this access token. But TBD on exactly how we're going to be using this refresh token to create a more seamless experience for our users. Um, so I'll check back in with that. But in any case, now we have more of a structured login authentication system where people are now able to sign up, log in, refresh their token, and now the next issue is this portion of like actually having a refresh token um, for this user. Um, I feel like the best thing to do right now is to just create another table in our database that is going to hold these refresh tokens. So yeah, let's go ahead and create a new file here. Access tokens.js. Let's go ahead and just copy and paste some basic code. Access tokens. Is this supposed to be capitalized like that? Apparently, yes, it is. Okay. Access tokens. This is a single access token. And all this is going to have is going to be access token. And let's see. Type equalize.string. 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 Allow null, false, validator. Validator? Validate. Not empty true. Save this. And now we also want these access tokens. And check here. Go ahead and kill this. We start it up. Resync. Admins, renters, users. Admins. Not seeing access tokens. Ah, yes, because here, then here. Access tokens equals require access tokens. Okay. Hmm. So I don't exactly know what the difference was, but okay, now I have access tokens here and select all from access token. Okay. So it needs to be all lowercase. Save this. Relation access token does not exist. go ahead and access token dot has one user dot has many access tokens. So user renter admin apartment access token apartment access token apartment access token. Save this. Okay. Now I want to make sure that everything is completely lowercase. Admin, apartment, main ticket, renter, user. Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and refresh the database one more time. Go to my server. More than this, I actually going to drop database to Santos. Oh, see Postgres. Drop database to Santos. Create database to Santos. Okay. Now let's go ahead and resume this. Dependency chain. Users to access tokens to users. This one, user. Okay. Take a look. We have access tokens, admins, select all from access tokens. Access tokens has ID, access token, created that, updated that. Okay. Okay. Perfect. So now we have a database set up to hold these access tokens. And then if we select all from users, let's see. Yeah, so it looks good so far. So apparently having this has some type of cyclic issue. I don't know how they're, maybe depending on how they're tied together, things just aren't too hot. Let's go ahead and save this and see if we get this error again. Cyclic dependency found. Users is dependent of itself. Let's see. Sequelize. Cyclic dependency found. Also specified constraints false for a profile picture. This is because we add a foreign key to the user to picture profile picture ID and from picture to user. If we were to add foreign keys to both, it would become create a cyclic dependency. SQLize would not know which table to create first, since the user depends on the picture and picture depends on the user. These kind of problems are detected by SQLize before the models are synced to the database, and you will get an error along the lines of that. If you encounter this, you should either disable some constraints or rethink your associations completely. Okay. So user that has many access tokens. Excuse me. You have full control over the foreign key column added by SQLize. You can use foreign key option. Um, Foreign key column and picture will now be used in UID. The using cannot be null in most cases covered by foreign key constraint. Because which SQLize creates automatically, but can be useful where foreign keys are disabled due to circular references. So I guess I'm not fully understanding why this is considered a circular reference. It doesn't seem like any things are actually related to each other, but I guess because some things rely on user and user relies on some things, that's considered cyclic because it doesn't know which to create first. Have specified false. This is because we add a foreign key from user to picture and from picture to user. If we were to add foreign keys to both, it would create a cyclic dependency, and SQLize does not know which table to create first, since the user depends on picture and picture depends on the user. I don't feel like that's what's happening, but maybe it is. These kind of problems are detected by SQLize before the models are synced to the database, and you will get an error along with this. If you encounter this, you should disable some constraints or rethink the associations completely. Um, oh, I said belongs to. Okay. If I save this, then it should be fine. So now, if we check on the users, we should see that we have an extra foreign key now. No, we do not. Select all from access tokens. Hmm. Okay, here we are. Now we have the access token ID. Um, so do I really need the access token ID? Not really. Um, but it is what it is for now. I need some way to hold these access tokens. I don't really even know if I need these associated with anything per se. Um, we just need to a place to store these pretty much. So let's go ahead and keep forcing the sync for now. Actually, I have a feeling this isn't going to be deleted until I drop the table completely and remake it. Um, Let me go ahead and go back to the associations. Remove this association completely because we just want to search a list of access tokens. Um, Go ahead and change it back to Postgres. Drop database to Santos. Create database to Santos. Select all from users. Change to Dos Santos. Select all from users. Select all from um, refresh tokens. Okay, not refresh tokens. What was it called? Access token. That's a misnomer on my part. These are refresh tokens that we want to save here. Refresh tokens. Yes. Refresh token. Refresh token. Save this. Let's see. Refresh tokens. Refresh tokens. Save. Should all be good to go. And drop database. Dos Santos. Create database. Dos Santos. Delete. Rerun the server. Synchronize it. Then let's go ahead and select all from users. After change to Dos Santos. Cool. Select all from refresh tokens. All lowercase. So it's still called access tokens right now. Refresh. All right, one last time. Ooh. Okay. Postgres. Delete. Database. Dos Santos. Create database. Dos Santos. Dos Drop database. Dos Santos. Create database. Dos Santos. Dos Santos. Start the server. Resync. Select all from users. Select all from refresh tokens. Cool. So we're all good to go. So that's refresh tokens. It doesn't have any reference to anything, but it's going to store all of our access tokens. And now what we're going to want to do is go back to our authentication and let's see, attempt to find the refresh token in the base. So we're going to want to say require um, go here, const, what was it? Refresh token equals require. Oh, excuse me. Right, user refresh token. Okay. Um, where was it at? Attempt to find the refresh token in the database. Um, const. Um, let's see. DB refresh token equals let's see, refresh token dot find one where refresh token is token refresh token. All right. So this is still called access token in here. Um, let's go ahead and update this. So db refresh tokens, refresh token. Keep it all lowercase. Oh no, it can be. Alrighty. Okay, so it's about time for me to head off. I got a couple errands I need to run, but before that, let's try to get this. Um, try to see how well we can get this running. So there's a couple cleanup stuff I'm going to need to do, but for now, we want to find this refresh token. Um, if refresh token, so if that's truthy, then we're good to go. Then we can. So let's go ahead and find out all the bad cases. So if there's nothing wrong, then we can just run this. But if there's something, if we if the refresh token is falsy or we're not able to find this token inside of here, then we want to res.send status of 403. So now we can go ahead and save this. Um, all right. So one thing I need to check is if I check refresh tokens, it still says access token here, which is not good. So I know I said last time, but one more time, Postgres, drop database, Dos Santos, create database Dos Santos, change to Dos Santos, resync, and select all from refresh tokens. And now refresh token is a name that we have here. Perfect. So now that we have all of that, let's go ahead and first sign up. And we have this is my password. Send the request. We have our password. It's hashed and all good to go. Next, we have our auth login. So let's go ahead and try to log in or get an access token and a refresh token. All good to go. Now that we have all of that, for the time being, I should be able to go ahead and take this access token, pass it along, and this is API has been cleared. And after 15 seconds, which should be about now, I'm going to try sending this again and again and again. Just kidding, this lasts for 30 minutes. It's not going to time out on me, so we're good to go there. We are not going to have to do this refresh. Next thing that we, let's see, attempt to find the refresh token in the database. If not found, send it to status before. So at this point, when are we adding the refresh token to this database? It's going to be here when we log in, I believe. And, or actually, it's going to be the sign up. We create the hash password. And when we log in is when we're actually creating this refresh token. So after it gets created, We want to do an await refresh token dot create. Let's see here. When you do a sign up, what do you do? User.create. Yes. So here, and now we just want to say refresh token is going to be passed into it and update this. I'm going to save this. So now let's go ahead and log in again. Cool. And now we've logged in. Now we should see in here, we have our refresh token saved. So now when we go ahead and do this refresh, it should only work if they're still logged in and this refresh token is still in our database. The last thing we would need is to go ahead and actually create a log out. So I'm going to go ahead and put that right here. I'm not going to have time to complete it yet. And we'll do some additional testing tomorrow or maybe after I get back. But now we're going to have auth-log out. And that's going to be the next step of what I need to do. So perfect. We're getting the functionality that we hope for so far. We weren't able to test everything, but it is time for me to head out. Really thank you for stopping by if anyone is watching. But I will continue to keep building out this project. I definitely had a lot of fun today working with this authentication, and definitely thank you to Web Dev Simplified for helping me understand this and code it out. But with that, thank you again, and see you next time.